crime and was diagnosed with a severe mental illness. In response to the previous offense, the magistrate over his case released him to roam the streets with a $0 bond and a simple written promise to appear in court. Mr. Patel, let me just ask, should judges apply the most lenient bail standards to people with extensive criminal history?
Do they apply the most lenient? I'm sorry.
Yeah, should they apply the most lenient bail standards to people with extensive criminal history?
That has not been my experience. That should not happen.
Is America a place where young women should fear to ride public transit?
No.
And was Irina Zarutska's death, would you say, possibly the result of Democrats' pro-crime policies?
That investigation and matter is in open trial, so I don't want to stylize the evidence.
I understand. Well, Mr. Patel, let me just say, taking over the FBI after the Biden administration's blatant weaponization of the agency is no easy feat, as we've recognized throughout this hearing today. For 4 years, we witnessed the Biden administration targeting regular Americans rather than violent criminals. For example, the Biden administration's FBI spent its time and resources going after churches and Christians. We know that the FBI used an undercover agent to collect information about a parishioner. We know that the FBI investigated and surveilled a Catholic priest. And all of this was in response to First Amendment protected activity. Mr. Patel, I want to ask you, should the FBI use its resources to spy on Catholics?
Never.
So what does it say about the culture of the Biden FBI that law enforcement resources were used to go after Catholics, and some FBI employees were comfortable with taking such actions?
Well, pursuant to my transparency initiative and working with Congress on oversight, those documents, that's it. Those documents are available for the American public to see and read and hold people accountable, and that's what I'm committed to.
And so have you been able to hold accountable those at the FBI who went after law-abiding Catholic church members?
If they did so improperly, yes.
Well, I've been a pastor for 36 years, and I've constantly stood up for life and stood up for family amidst a culture that's increasingly hostile to both of those things. And if the Biden administration targeted Catholics, could I have been targeted by the Ray FBI as well?
Well, I don't know, but I'm not going to target you.
Well, I know that President Trump respects religious liberty and that his administration is seeking to right the wrongs of the Biden administration. Securing our freedoms and protecting faith leaders and communities requires a multi-pronged approach. What would you say in just the last few moments, what is the FBI under your leadership doing to make sure that our religious liberty and religious leaders can rest comfortable this evening?
Zealously protecting our First Amendment rights,
Amen.
But zealously going after those that abuse that right that leads to criminal conduct. You will be investigated, you will be looked at, and referred to prosecution every single time the evidence warrants.
Thank you, sir. One final area. I do want to draw attention, Mr. Patel, to Waxhaw, North Carolina, a town in my district that just fell victim to a cyber attack on September 12th that interrupted emergency services. Waxhaw is working with state partners, and the FBI has been notified on this attack, and I certainly pray they're able to help out with the ongoing investigation. Could you just speak to what the FBI is doing to bolster our community's cybersecurity to defend against any future cyber attacks?
Well, in North Carolina, you're slated to get a plus-up of 22 FBI employees, and they're already on the way. And that encompasses cyber, counter-intel, counterterrorism, field agents, intel operatives. And what we're doing on a macro level on the counterintelligence and cyber front is going after the people that fund these operations on these online platforms and breaking their banks. Because once we do that successfully across the board, they won't have the ability to attack us.
Well, thank you, Director Patel, and let me just add my comments to those of my colleagues that are very grateful for your leadership, grateful for your courage, your consistency, and for being willing to stand in the gap for us. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Director Patel, thank you for being here with us today. Over the past few years, we have seen a disturbing increase of attacks on Christians and conservatives. Since the leak of the Dobbs decision, there have been 354 attacks on Catholic churches. In the first year following the leak, there were more than 100 attacks against pro-life pregnancy care centers, and the shadowy pro-abortion group Jane's Revenge claimed responsibility for 24 of these attacks. Meanwhile, the Biden FBI focused resources on attacking Catholics and peaceful pro-life protesters like Mark Houck and Paul Vaughn. Many of these attacks on Christians and conservatives were coordinated or praised by dark leftist cells who lurk on the online chat rooms of Reddit, Discord, and game sites. This is a war room for Antifa and violent transgender activists. There have been essentially no incidents of violence by Catholics, pro-lifers, or parents at school board meetings, but there have unfortunately been multiple shootings motivated by leftist and transgender ideology, including recent attacks in Nashville, Colorado Springs, Denver, and Aberdeen. Worse, the targeted violence reached a boiling point this past month. A few weeks ago, an anti-Christian transgender terrorist murdered 2 children and injured 17 in a shooting at a Catholic mass. And last week, while we were sitting in this committee room almost to the hour, Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a 22-year-old who appears to have been motivated by leftist and transgender ideology. As you confirmed yesterday to my Senate colleagues, he may not have acted alone, and you testified that in his online chat room of more than 20 trans ideologues that you were aware, I believe you said many more, many were aware of and possibly complicit in the assassination. Director Patel, in light of the increased violence emanating from the far left, is your FBI investigating this violent trend of anti-religious, Antifa, and transgender-driven violence?
All of it across the board is being zealously investigated, no matter what your motivation or bias is behind it.
Very good. We've also noticed a dramatic surge of the number of clinics offering so-called gender-affirming care. Whistleblowers in a recent NIH study confirmed that these clinics prey on some of the most mentally ill children and young adults in our society, and these clinics are quick to prescribe life-altering puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgery, and often these patients get worse rather than better, and unfortunately, some have become violent, some have even committed mass shootings, and the partner of one of them assassinated Charlie Kirk. Director Patel, is the FBI looking into the role that these gender clinics may have in the recent attacks in making these mentally ill individuals violent?
We're looking at the entire spider web for any of these attacks, be it Denver or Charlie or where have you, and that's why our investigations are ongoing. We don't have a final product yet.
One of my Democrat colleagues, as an aside, mentioned, quote, the federal takeover of our cities. And I don't know whether my Democrat colleagues, for some reason, liked Washington, D.C. better when it was more dangerous and more violent, when there were more robberies and carjackings and murders and rapes. But what has the crime picture in Washington, D.C. looked like since the so-called federal takeover?
2,100 arrests, 37% decrease in violent crime, same time last year, 60% decrease in gun crimes, 74% decrease in carjackings, and 53% reduction in homicides in Washington, D.C. in the last month alone.
Very good. And I thank you so much for your testimony. I know it's been a long day, so I'll give you a little break and yield back the rest.
Gentleman yield.
My time.
Gentleman yield.
Yes, yes.
Director Patel, what's a 302?
It's a report, the number of the report, whenever an FBI agent goes out and interviews someone.
And are you familiar with the 302 where the FBI agent interviewed the whistleblower who's come forward and talked about the former chair of the Intel Committee here in the House pushing staff members to leak classified information? Well, I'll just read from it. Staffers were instructed to use, this is from the 302, interview this person. Staffers were instructed to use any sources that had developed within the United States intelligence community to gather information, which would then be made public through the media in order to compel public opinion. You familiar with that?
I am.
Yeah, and that's how they played the game, wasn't it? Leaking information, classified or otherwise, true or otherwise, to create this public opinion to compel action to undermine the president. Is that accurate?
I believe so.
Just one other point I would make from this. This witness also said in the 302 that the agent recorded that the witness provided the interviewing agents with copies of both his handwritten notes and an email. So he gave them the stuff he wrote, and at the actual time this was taking place. That's all in the 302, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from Missouri.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit for the record an article from The Hill, Massive Crime Drop in D.C., City Sees Zero Murder Week, dated August 25th, 2025. And I'd also like to submit for the record an article from the New York Times, dated April 18th, 2025. Man who set fire on Shapiro's mansion cited treatment of Palestinians, police say.
Yeah, thank you. Without objection.
I have.
Gentlelady from
UC.
Texas and then Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. My first UC is the FBIAA letter to Congress on summary terminations, where it states denying fundamental due process and summarily dismissing special agents will only make it harder to protect our nation. These actions distract agents from their work, foster fear that their assignments could cost them their careers either now or under the next administration, and increase the risk of criminal and national security threats by undermining unity and morale within the Bureau.
Without objection.
The next one is a CNN article. FBI agents are again pulled from their day jobs to address a Trump priority. It states, morale is the worst I've seen, said one law enforcement source. The Bureau is becoming unrecognizable. Lots of people are weighing really difficult decisions right now.
Without objection. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd request unanimous consent to introduce into the record a September 16th, 2025 article in the New Republic entitled DOJ Quietly Deletes Study on Politics of Domestic Terrorists. The Justice Department has taken down a study that proves Republicans' entire narrative wrong about left-wing violence.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director, for being here. I think without question we can say that Donald Trump has been tougher on crime and tougher on international terrorism than any president in American history. I imagine that brings you a lot of satisfaction and pride as director of America's foremost law enforcement agency. Recently, President Trump conducted very strategic and important strikes on Iran's nuclear apparatus in that country. We also know that there are concerns of significant Iranian sleeper terrorist cells here in the U.S., perhaps exacerbated by the open border during the Biden administration. What can you tell Congress and the American people about what the FBI is doing to safeguard us from potential terrorist attack by Iranian cells?
So our counterterrorism division, which is fully stocked up, watches for reflections in the intelligence streams that our intelligence community collects and produces, and works hand in glove with our partners at the CIA and elsewhere to make sure that any threat, even if it's hearsay, double hearsay, triple hearsay, or totally incredible, is not only fully run down, but we also take our duties to notify and give defensive briefings to those who are mentioned in those intelligence reports to make sure that we do both our notification obligation and our investigatory obligation.
Thank you. The FBI is also the foremost counterintelligence apparatus here in the U.S. We know the U.S. faces a more complex threat of global, more complex array of global threats than any time perhaps World War II or even superseding that time. As America continues to be under attack from various intelligence agencies globally, what can you tell us about the counterintelligence operations of the FBI as a core function?
This is why the CIA mission is so important to the FBI, because as you said, no one else can do it. No one else has the authorities to do it. And even if they did, they don't have the capabilities to do it. And the CIA mission has to be headquartered in Washington, but have far-reaching capabilities because we have to face against our adversaries in the DPRK, in Russia, China, Iran, and elsewhere. And in order to do that, we have to have dedicated intelligence professionals on those target sets. And since I become director, I've demanded not only a dismantling and disruption of networks, but a public display of how we're doing it so the world knows that our adversary is A, attacking us, and B, we're stopping them. And that's why you've seen these dramatic increases in counterintelligence arrest in the PRC by 33%, in Russia 83%, in Iran 60%. We are showing the world that they are trying to engage in espionage activities against us, and we are holding them accountable publicly.
And there's been increasing concern about the Maduro regime of Venezuela, both their potential support of terrorist activity, criminal drug networks, and potential espionage entities here within the U.S. What can you tell us about your activities regarding the Maduro regime of Venezuela?
Generally speaking, one of the largest transshipment points and shipment points for narcotics out of South America, Colombia, obviously, and also Venezuela, is being utilized heavily by the narco traffickers to send up cocaine, meth, and fentanyl, and excuse me, all the other illegal narcotics through the island chains in the Caribbean Ocean and ultimately for America. So there has to be more work done in the region to stop those navigable waterways from being traversed with drugs bound for America.
And finally, Mr. Director, what is the one thing that Congress could most do in terms of passing a law to best support the FBI in making America safer and more secure?
Get us more authorities to get online, to get onto gaming, to get onto social media companies, gaming platforms, have legal access, and also have private partnerships with the FBI of those companies and allow them to report into us on a daily basis. There is no human being or AI system on earth that can go out there and cover down on the threat in those theaters. And so we need the assistance, and we need more authorities, and we need the private sector to double down.
Well, thank you very much for all you're doing, all the men and women of the FBI are doing to keep us safe, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Got a UC request from the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an article titled, FBI Flooded with Record Number of New Agent Applications, Kash Patel's First Month. The FBI saw 5,577 new agent applications in March and more than 10,000 since January.
Without objection. The gentleman from Kansas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Director, thank you for being here. I have listened carefully to all the discussion in this hearing. I've reached two top-line conclusions. First, I am glad I don't have your job. And second, I am glad you do. Thank you for being willing to step up and serve in this role. I'd like to plow a little bit of ground that we've not spent a lot of time on so far and explore. You mentioned, and I'm well aware of your strong commitment to partnering with state and local law enforcement authorities. Obviously, one of the missions is in the counter-drug space. Another is in the forensic laboratory space, where both you and a lot of local and state agencies cooperate in terms of evidence analysis. From the state side, programs such as the HIDA programs, very, very important in counter-drug, such as the Coverdell grants, very, very important in maintaining state laboratory capacities. Would I be correct in concluding that if we are able to maintain robust funding for those types of programs, including both Coverdell and HIDA, that would contribute to the safety of the United States and to your mission?
Absolutely.
Director, you have talked a little bit about some of the counter-drug work that you've been doing. One thing we haven't talked about yet, the President, in one of his first actions upon taking office back in January, designated a number of the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's not just a paper transaction. I believe the list has been expanded since those first actions. In terms of America's military engagement with the cartels abroad, in terms of our intelligence engagement with them abroad, that designation has had real meaning and has affected some of the thinking and approaches of our military and our intelligence community. Can you talk a bit about how that designation might be affecting or should be affecting the FBI's approach to dealing with the domestic activities of the cartels?
The simple way to analogize it is after 9/11 and the manhunt for the foreign terrorist organizations overseas in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, the FBI received certain authorities to go out there and dedicate a mission to go after them both lawfully and investigatorially and collect evidence and provide it to our agency partners. Once the foreign terrorist organization designation was labeled over to the Mexican drug cartels, we can now do that here, and in Mexico, and in Colombia, and in Venezuela, and anywhere else they are. And so that's the best analogy I have. What we're able to do is take our counterterrorism platform, traditionally used for global terrorist manhunting and bring it into this hemisphere against a very real threat, which is the drug traffickers, and they are foreign terrorist organizations. So we just have so many more resources and authorities now directed at them.
So, for example, Director, in the regions, from the vantage point of local law enforcement, there are structures that have historically handled those partnerships separately. HIDTA, for example, is an example on the drug trafficking side. The JTTFs are an example on the terrorism side. How is the thinking evolving in terms of on a regional basis, either merging or not merging those structures now that the targets in many ways are merged?
So the JTTFs are kind of our forward operating base across every single state in this country to take on that mission. And anytime you're labeled a foreign terrorist organization, you come right under the authorities of the JTTF, the task force officers, and the state and local level police work that gets done in those JTTFs. And the Homeland Security Task Force layer on top of that, I think 25 or 30 across the country, specifically working with DHS and Secretary Noem to go after the drug trafficking foreign terrorist organizations, because they have unique capabilities and authorities dedicated to that mission. And so that's the beauty of the HSTFs.
Let me ask you an adjacent question, Director. I noticed in your written testimony, I don't think we've talked about it yet, you brought to our attention an expiring authority. It's in 6 U.S.C. 124N with respect to counter-UAS drones. You point out that authority expires in statute at the end of this month,
Yes.
and you impressed upon us your interest in seeing it extended in some manner. Can you talk a little bit about the FBI's role in counter-UAS work over American airspace? I represent a district that's going to host some of the FIFA World Cup activities coming up. We're obviously very interested in security, and there are limits on what our state and local authorities have the capacity to do or what our military has the capacity to do once the threat is domestic.
So it's critically important. Both the FBI and DHS have those capabilities. I'll speak to the FBI, of course, only. And you raised the World Cup, and that's exactly what we need it for. The Club World Cup, which just happened, was 32 games in at least a dozen different cities across the country, the largest sporting events consecutively in American history. And we used our counter-drone capabilities to not only inspect and secure stadium locations, but where fans were hovering and we call base camps. And thankfully, because of the success of the FBI and DHS, we had no significant security incidences. And flipping to the World Cup, which is going to be 3 times as large, and obviously the largest we've ever had, and blending into the LA Olympics in 28, our counter-UAS capabilities are going to be the ones that are able us to have literal bird's eye view of the threat dynamic around so many of these cities, which are going to see literally tens and hundreds of thousands of people flock to them. So we have to have it.
And making sure the bad guys don't have the same.
Exactly.
Very good. I yield back and thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Director, you've been amazing. You've been here 4 hours and 41 minutes without a break. We appreciate that. I think we have one more member, a few UC requests, and then you can we'll let you go. But we appreciate that. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you again for taking the time, Director Patel, and for Chairman Jordan for holding this hearing. Thank you for depoliticizing the FBI and getting it back to its original mission as well. Director Patel, do you agree that we have a problem in the United States with politically motivated violence?
Absolutely.
And I very much agree. I think we can all agree that political violence is wrong, it's evil, regardless of which side it comes from, and that we can all adamantly and vehemently reject it, or we certainly should. But one of the things that we've noticed recently is that affinity and tolerance for political violence is not equally distributed on both sides of the aisle. In fact, right now, social media is filled with leftists who are cheering on the murder of an iconic conservative political figure, Charlie Kirk. And it's not just random people on Twitter doing this now. There's a YouGov poll released just a few days ago, which stated that 25% of those who identify as very liberal believe that political violence can sometimes be justified. That's far too many, is it not? It is.
One is far too many.
One is far too many. That's right. Only 3% of very conservatives said the same thing, and we can agree that 3% is far too many. But there's an astounding difference between 25% on the left accepting and tolerating political violence and 3% on the right. I would hope that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would also recognize that there is a systemic problem on their side of the aisle with tolerance for violence against people with whom they politically disagree, that there's a cultural rot on their side of the aisle that needs to be addressed desperately. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
One of the more astounding aspects of this is that it's not just people. This comes from the very top, from their political leaders. Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this. And that, by the way, is a just response to acceptance and tolerance of political violence. It's amazing to me that the political left today, who were the originators and the cheerleaders of cancel culture, now have the backbone to attack conservatives for defending their assassinated friend. But there's a key difference here. Democrats want to silence conservatives for speaking obvious, self-evident ontological truths like that men aren't women and men can't get pregnant. That seems pretty basic. That seems like a basic truth that we should all be able to agree on. Republicans, by contrast, are recognizing that a constitutional republic depends on the free and open exchange of ideas that we can debate without violence, and that assassinating a political rival is evil, it's wrong, and it should not be glorified or promoted or justified in any way, including in the way that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar did. So Mr. Patel, thank you again for being here. I'd like to, with the remainder of my time, just get your opinion. Does the FBI recognize the rising threat of political violence in America, and what can you guys do to address it?
Yes, we do, and what we can do to address it, Congressman, is we need to get online partnerships with these companies in the public space, on these gaming sites, and on these social media sites. As I was saying earlier, there is no way to triage the amount of information generated on these sites by the FBI alone. And we need the public-private partnership. And there's another law that's expiring, I think, at the end of this month, which I believe we need renewed, that allows private sector companies to report into the FBI without liability for criminal investigatory purposes. And that's the kind of stuff we need to keep going.
Got it. Thank you, Director Patel. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman from Arizona.
I have some UCs.
Gentleman will state his request.
Thank you. The first one is a piece entitled Review of Domestic Terrorism After Kirk's Murder Shows Biden Politicized Issue, the Intel, and Fudged the Data.
Without objection.
Thank you. Make a motion to table.
Oh, no, we got to recognize the ranking member for his motion.
It's just a UC request.
The gentleman's recognized for a UC request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the ADL report issued February 21, 2025, titled Murder and Extremism in the United States in 2024, concluding that for the third year in a row, every single extremist-related murder in the United States in 2024 was committed by right-wing extremists, 8 of the 13 involving white supremacists and 5 having connections to far-right anti-government extremists.
Without objection. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized for unanimous consent.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple articles here. First is a New York Post article, July 17th, 2025. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden claims big Epstein file full of actionable information locked in Treasury Department drawer.
Without objection.
This is The Guardian, May 18th, 2023. Deutsche Bank agrees to pay $75 million to settle Jeffrey Epstein lawsuit.
Without objection.
This is Fox Business, September 10th, 2025. JP Morgan processed over $1 billion for Jeffrey Epstein despite internal concerns over sex offender status.
Without objection.
And New York Times, Bank of America flagged suspicious payments to Epstein only after he died.
Objection.
Okay, and I also have a motion, Mr. Chair.
Lady was recognized. We're going to come back to the motion. I thought it was made by Mr., but I want to dismiss our witness.
I think I need
Could we do the motions before he goes?
What,
One, I just wanted to press the motion I originally
yeah,
had.
we're
for
going to
the-
bring that up. Is that what this is?
four
Or you-
banks.
Are you doing that?
No, this is another motion.
Okay, well, I'm going to recognize first the gentleman because we held that motion in advance.
I've got
The gentleman from-
I still have the UC, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So look, there are four banks, JP Morgan, Bank of New York, Bank of America, and Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, but the gentleman can state his motion.
Yeah, but the motion is to subpoena the CEOs of these four banks to bring in all records relating to their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein and to produce all records reflecting it. These four banks have flagged to the government $1.5 billion in suspicious transactions relating to the sex
Chairman, I move the
trafficking
table.
crimes. Mr. Diamond just released a statement saying he would be
Chairman,
happy to
motion-
comply.
Mr. Chairman, he doesn't need
The
the,
motion to table, the motion offered by the gentleman from Maryland, the motion to table is not debatable. The question occurs on the motion to table. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is tabled.
I'd like a recorded vote if we could, Mr.
Recorded vote being requested. The clerk will call. Well, we got to get the clerk here. Oh, the clerk's right here. Wonderful. Clerk
Mr.
will call the
Jordan?
roll. Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Isa? Mr. Biggs? Mr. Biggs votes aye. Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mr. Tiffany? Mr. Massey? Mr. Roy? Mr. Roy votes aye. Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Klein? Mr. Klein votes aye. Mr. Gooden? Mr. Van Drew? Mr. Nels? Mr. Nels votes yes. Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore votes yes. Mr. Kiley? Ms. Hageman? Ms. Lee? Mr. Hunt? Mr. Fry? Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman votes aye. Mr. Knott? Mr. Knott votes aye. Mr. Harris? Mr. Harris votes aye. Mr. Onder? Mr. Onder votes aye. Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Schmidt votes aye. Mr. Gill? Mr. Gill votes aye. Mr. Baumgartner? Mr. Raskin?
No.
Mr. Raskin votes no. Mr. Nadler? No. Mr. Nadler votes no. Ms. Lofgren? Ms. Lofgren votes no. Mr. Cohen? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Mr. Swallow? Mr. Swallow votes no. Mr. Liu? Ms. Jayapal? Mr. Correa? Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon votes no. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse votes no. Ms. McBath? Ms. McBath votes no. Ms. Ross? Ms. Ross votes no. Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes no. Mr. Garcia? Mr. Garcia votes no. Ms. Kamlager-Dove? Mr. Moskowitz? Mr. Moskowitz votes no. Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman? Ms. Crockett?
No.
Ms. Crockett votes no.
Gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gooden.
Mr. Gooden?
You're a no. You're a no. Lance? Yes.
Mr. Gooden votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, how am I recorded?
Gentleman from New York.
Mr. Goldman, you're not recorded.
No.
Mr. Goldman votes no.
Gentlelady from Washington.
Ms. Jayapal votes no.
Gentleman from California. Gentlelady from California.
Mr. Liu votes no. Ms. Kamlager-Dove votes no.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Massey votes no.
Director, I want to thank you again for being here. While we're waiting for members to get back to record their vote, you don't need to stay around for these kind of motions. We appreciate the service you're providing the country, appreciate your testimony today, and appreciate the fact that you did it 5 hours straight. That's amazing. So God bless you and keep up the good work. The witness is dismissed. I know, but I'm dismissing the witness. I don't think it, nothing involved.
I'll just put them in the record. Mr. Chairman,
We're still waiting for members to come back to record their vote on the motion offered
Good.
by the gentleman from.
no, I just, as a point of order, I just wanted to establish that the dismissal of the witness doesn't affect the viability of any of the motions.
No, the committee's still going. How many members we need?
Madam Clerk, point of order. What is the current vote?
Point of order.
The vote is open. We will be waiting for members to get back to record their vote. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye.
Gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Kiley votes aye.
A radical position that she wanted to examine the scientific facts before drawing conclusions.
Mr. Correa.
I would
Mr. Correa
hope
votes no.
that is the very least we could expect from any public health official in the United States. And number two,
my colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. While the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed and downside risk.
a radical position that she wanted to examine the scientific facts before drawing conclusions. I would hope that is the very least we could expect from any public health official in the United States. And number two, reason why she was fired. She refused to get rid of career scientists for doing their jobs, including Dr. Howry, who was then the chief medical officer.
Of the civil rights movement that opened up the FBI and the federal workforce to lots of people who never would have been hired in its first decades. Alas, you share J. Edgar Hoover's dangerous obsession with blind loyalty over professionalism and effective public policy. For Hoover, it was blind loyalty to him in keeping his secrets. For you, it's blind loyalty to Donald Trump in keeping his secrets. During your confirmation, it was widely noted on all sides that your primary qualification was your unwavering loyalty to Trump. Unlike other directors, you had no work experience at the FBI, but you had made over 1,000 media and political appearances in support of Trump's campaign. Your Senate confirmation vote was 51 to 49, the closest in history.
Markups and
with your opponents
going on right now. I'm just wondering
you were not
how long are we going to hold this open?
My read on the vote is that right now it's for the job. 18 of 14. I hoped that they were wrong.
17.
Alas, they were not. Well, most other new
We're
FBI directors drew on their experience as FBI agents. You didn't have that. But you did write a picture book trilogy for children ages 5 and up based on your experience.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Clashing with President Trump's political enemies.
Couldn't we just be debating instead of sitting here waiting?
Literary alter ego, Kash the Knight, as a wacky, easily bored wizard carrying out King Donald's vengeance by driving his enemies out of the kingdom. In the books, King Donald is besieged by the evil Hillary Queentown, but saved in the end by Kash. Then Kash goes on to catch mules who are stealing the 2020 election for the great King Donald from Sleepy Joe. And then in the third book, Kash takes down the Dragon of the Jalapenos, nicknamed the DOJ. Your supporters had hoped that you would graduate from imagining yourself a romantic fairy tale knight to actually running America's premier federal law enforcement agency. Alas, just as we've learned how dangerous it is to put a science-denying anti-vaxxer in charge of our public health, we've learned how dangerous it is to name as director of the FBI a man who thinks of himself as a fairy tale knight who keeps a fire-breathing dragon named DOJ at home to forcibly drive villains out of the kingdom. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated while his killer was still on the loose, you decided you didn't need to be at FBI headquarters in Washington to work with your team while the chaotic manhunt unfolded. You spent your evening dining in a swanky Midtown Manhattan restaurant and tweeting out false information that the subject of the shooting was in custody. A statement you had to retract 1 hour later. Your performance was so disturbing that even the MAGA base was alarmed.
to
Culture
produce or
warrior
otherwise
Christopher
make available
Rufo,
to the
who just a
committee
few months ago
all
sat in your chair as
suspicious
a Republican
activity
witness,
reports in the possession of
observed
the
that you
Treasury
performed
Department,
terribly,
identifying
and he
roughly
called for your ousting.
$1.5 billion
The FBI might be able to
transactions.
survive your delusions of grandeur and the explosively volatile
The
temper
motion
that was on
is
display
not debatable.
yesterday
I didn't
in the
finish.
Senate.
She hadn't
The
completed the
intractable
motion.
problem is that
Is
you
it
are running the
proper to cut it off
FBI not as a
before
law
it's completed,
enforcement
Mr. Chairman?
agency
Finish your
charged
last
with
sentence
keeping the
there.
American
The
people
gentlelady
safe,
can finish.
but
Okay,
as a
so we're
political
asking them to
enforcement
identify
agency
the roughly
working
1.5
directly for
billion
the
in
president's
suspicious
vengeance campaign.
transactions related
7
to the
months
sex
in,
trafficking
it's
crimes of
impossible to
Epstein,
overstate the
Maxwell,
destruction,
and their
chaos, and
co-conspirators,
demoralization
and as we
you've
know,
brought to the
Mr.
FBI
Patel
and its
said that the
workforce. And the
Treasury
resulting
recognized
danger
information on the
your
table.
actions have caused to our
Motion not
country.
debatable. The question
You've been
occurs on the motion
systematically
table. Those in
purging the
favor say
FBI
aye.
of its
Aye.
most experienced
Those
and
opposed, no.
qualified agents,
I
division
request a
leaders, and
recorded vote.
experts in
Recorded vote being
counter-terror,
requested. The clerk will call the
counterintelligence,
roll.
Mr.
and
Jordan, yes. Mr.
cybersecurity,
Jordan votes yes.
precisely
Mr.
the
Issa?
people
Yes.
who have
Mr.
the
Issa votes
expertise
yes.
you
Mr. Biggs?
lack, in which the FBI and the country need.
Biggs votes aye.
They've been
Mr.
expelled
McClintock?
from the ranks of the Bureau
Mr. McClintock votes
simply
aye.
because
Mr.
they did their
Tiffany?
duty
Mr.
investigating
Tiffany votes aye.
crimes,
Mr. Massey?
including those committed
Mr.
by
Massey
the
votes
mob
no.
that
Mr.
attacked
Roy?
the Capitol on January
Roy
6,
votes aye.
2021,
Mr. Fitzgerald?
and beat the hell out of more than
Mr. Fitzgerald
140
votes
police
aye.
officers. Or
Mr. Klein?
simply because
Mr.
you
Klein
suspected
votes
them
aye.
of being
Mr. Gooden?
insufficiently loyal
Mr.
to
Gooden
Donald
votes
Trump.
aye. Mr.
You
Van
illegally
Drew?
sacked Brian Driscoll,
Van Drew
the
votes
former
yes. Mr.
acting
Nels?
director of the
Mr. Nels
Bureau
votes yes.
and a
Mr. Moore?
decorated
Mr.
counterterrorism
Moore votes
expert
yes.
who
Mr.
worked at
Kiley?
the FBI
Mr.
for nearly
Kiley votes
20
aye.
years.
Ms. Hageman?
According to Driscoll,
Ms. Hageman votes
you
aye.
told him
Ms.
your own
Lee?
job, quote,
Ms. Lee votes
depended
aye.
on the
Mr.
removal of
Hunt?
agents who worked on the
Mr.
cases
Fry?
against the president,
Mr. Fry votes
regardless
aye.
of whether the
Mr.
agents
Grossman?
chose to work on those cases
Grossman
or
votes
not.
aye.
You
Mr.
added,
Knott?
quote, the
Mr. Knott
FBI
votes
tried
aye.
to put the
Mr.
president
Harris?
in jail, and
Mr.
he hasn't
Harris votes
forgotten
aye.
it.
Mr. Onder?
You forced
Mr.
out
Onder votes
the
aye.
leader of the
Mr.
Salt Lake
Schmidt?
City field office,
Mr.
Medtab
Schmidt votes
Saeed,
aye. Mr.
just
Gill?
weeks before
Mr.
Charlie
Gill
Kirk's
votes aye. Mr.
assassination,
Baumgartner?
depriving the FBI of
Mr.
an
Baumgartner
experienced
votes aye.
counterterrorism
Mr. Raskin?
expert
No. Mr.
described
Raskin
by her
votes no.
colleagues
Mr.
as
Nadler?
absolutely the best
Mr. Nadler votes no.
and
Ms.
legendary.
Lofgren?
She would have led the
Ms. Lofgren
FBI's
votes no.
manhunt
Mr.
had she
Cohen?
not been fired.
Mr.
When Trump
Johnson?
decided that rounding up immigrants with
Mr.
no
Johnson
criminal
votes no.
records
Mr. Swallow?
was more important than preventing
Swallow votes
crimes
no.
like
Mr. Liu?
human trafficking of women and girls, drug
Jayapal?
dealing, terrorism, and fraud, you ordered the
Correa?
25 largest field offices to
Ms.
divert
Scanlon?
thousands of
Ms.
agents
Scanlon
away
votes no.
from
Mr.
chasing
Magoo's?
down violent criminals, sex traffickers,
McBath?
fraudsters, and scammers
Ms.
to
Ross?
carry out this immigration
Ross votes no.
crackdown.
Ms. Ballant?
Director Patel, you
Ms.
treated the
Ballant
men
votes
and
no.
women at
Mr.
FBI
Garcia?
with disrespect
Mr.
and
Garcia votes
paranoia.
no.
You've assembled
Ms.
a
Kamlager
roving
Dove?
band of freelancing henchmen
Mr. Moss
within your
votes-
office and charged them with conducting
Mr. Goldman?
unauthorized investigations,
Mr. Goldman votes
targeting
no.
and harassing
Ms. Crockett?
career
No. Ms.
FBI
Crockett votes no.
employees. Amazingly, you forced senior leadership to repeatedly
Mr.
take
Apple votes
polygraph
no.
tests
The lady from
to
California?
prove their political loyalty and pushed out leaders
Ms.
who
Kamlager Dove is
refused
not
these
recorded.
demeaning exercises.
Ms. Kamlager
And now
Dove
we're
votes no.
seeing one very
Gentleman from
clear
California?
reason why you
Mr.
want to
Liu,
build a
you are
political
not recorded.
FBI.
Mr.
The
Liu votes
Epstein
no.
files. You want an
Mr.
FBI
Moskowitz?
blindly loyal to Trump
Mr.
and to
Moskowitz
you as
votes
his
no.
enforcer so you can continue your cover-up of a massive international sex trafficking ring with more than 1,000 victims, betraying all of the survivors of the sexual violence. Before you got in this job, you called for full release of the Epstein files,
Mr. Chairman,
telling
there are 23 ayes and
podcaster Benny
16
Johnson
noes.
that the only reason the
Motion
list
table
was
carries.
not released by DOJ
Chairman,
and
I have a
FBI was,
motion.
quote, because
Gentleman
of
can,
who's
state his
on
motion.
that
Recognized to state
list.
his motion.
Upon your
I hope that champion
confirmation,
of
you
free
promised
speech,
that,
Mr.
quote,
McClintock,
there will
lets
be
me
no
read
cover-ups,
it.
no missing documents, no
Chairman,
stone
pursuant to
left
Clause
unturned.
2K6
And anyone from the
of
prior
Rule
current
11,
Bureau
I move
who
that the
undermines
committee
this
subpoena
will be
Deputy
swiftly
FBI
pursued.
Director Dan
This
Bongino
spring, you ordered
to
hundreds
produce
of
and
agents
testify
to
with the
pour
director
over
is
all the
unwilling
Epstein
to discuss
files,
and share
but
with
not to look
Congress
for more clues
the files
about
related
the
to
money
Jeffrey
network
Epstein, including
or the
witness
network of
of human
records,
traffickers,
including FBI
you
Form
pulled these
302,
agents from their
search warrant
regular
materials,
counterterrorism
records
or
relating
drug
to the
trafficking
initiation
duties
of
to
investigations,
work around the
records
clock,
relating
some
to
of them
financial
sleeping at their
transactions and
desks
payments, evidence
to
collected
conduct
from
a
wiretaps.
frantic
The
search to
FBI
make
director
sure
said
Donald
today that
Trump's
they've
name
already released these
and
documents.
image were
Bongino has
flagged
reportedly
and
considered resigning from
redacted
his
wherever
position
they
over the
appear,
refusal to release
whether
the
an
full
email, a
Epstein
text, a
document.
letter, an
Absolutely
interview,
more
a
for
photograph,
today.
or a video. In May, Attorney General Bondi reportedly told Trump that his
Motion is
name had
not
indeed
debatable. The
appeared
question occurs on the motion to
multiple
table.
times
Those in favor
throughout
will
the
say
Epstein
aye.
files, and
Aye.
not long
Those
thereafter, in
opposed, no.
July, you and the Attorney
Opinion of the
General
chair, the
released a
ayes
memo
have it,
claiming
and the motion
that,
is
quote,
tabled.
I also can
no
call for a
further
vote, Mr. Chairman,
disclosure would be
recorded vote.
Recorded vote being
appropriate
requested. The
or
clerk will
warranted. In a
call-
few
excuse me, call
short
the roll.
months,
Mr. Jordan.
how did you go
yes.
from being a crusader
Jordan
for
votes yes.
accountability and
Mr. Issa.
transparency for the Epstein files to being a
Mr.
part
Issa
of the
votes yes.
conspiracy
Mr.
and
Biggs.
cover-up? The answer is
Biggs votes
simple.
aye.
You
Mr.
said it
McClintock.
yourself, because
Mr.
of
McClintock
who's
votes aye.
on that
Mr.
list.
Tiffany.
Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein over the years
Massey.
is well documented.
Mr. Massey
A
votes
week
no.
ago,
Mr.
the
Roy.
Oversight Committee released
Mr. Roy
Trump's
votes
disturbing
aye. Mr.
birthday
Fitzgerald.
book note to Epstein, written over a drawing of a woman's naked body, referring to a, quote, wonderful secret.
Mr.
The Oversight
Fitzgerald
Committee
votes aye.
obtained the
Mr.
note
Klein.
from the
Mr.
Epstein
Klein
estate,
votes aye.
not from the
Mr. Gooden.
FBI,
Mr.
raising
Gooden votes
questions
aye. Mr.
again
Vandrew.
of whether the FBI has been withholding
Vandrew votes
documents.
yes. Mr. Nels.
While you're unleashing the
Nels votes
FBI
yes. Mr.
to
Moore.
cater to Trump's
Mr. Moore
desire
votes yes.
to shut
Mr.
down the
Kiley.
Epstein inquiry, the first 9 months of the Trump
Hageman.
presidency have seen a spate of
Hageman
political
votes
violence
yes. Ms.
and
Lee.
domestic terror events.
Lee votes
We saw
aye.
deadly
Mr.
attacks on political figures on both the left
Mr. Fry.
and the right. The brutal assassination
Mr.
of
Fry votes
Minnesota
aye.
Democratic
Mr.
House
Grossman.
Speaker Melissa Hortman and her
Mr.
husband
Grossman
in the
votes aye.
attempted
Mr.
murder
Knott.
of Democratic
Mr.
State
Knott
Senator
votes
John
aye. Mr.
Hoffman
Harris.
and his wife, who miraculously survived a
Mr.
combined
Onder.
17 gunshots.
Mr. Onder votes
We saw an
aye. Mr.
arsonist
Schmidt.
set Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's
Mr. Schmidt
residence
votes
on
aye.
fire.
Mr. Gill.
And of course, last
Mr.
week,
Gill votes
we saw
aye.
the
Mr.
horrific,
Baumgartner.
cold-blooded assassination
Baumgartner
of Charlie
votes aye.
Kirk
Mr.
in
Raskin.
Utah that has shaken the nation.
Mr. Raskin votes no.
1
Mr.
minute after
Nadler.
Charlie Kirk was shot in the
Mr.
neck,
Nadler votes no. Ms.
a
Lofgren.
16-year-old
Ms.
shooter in
Lofgren votes
Evergreen,
no. Mr.
Colorado,
Cohen.
radicalized by white
Mr.
supremacist
Johnson.
ideology online,
Mr.
opened
Johnson
fire
votes no.
and
Mr.
critically
Swallow.
wounded 2 other students at
Mr.
Evergreen
Swallow
High
votes no.
School.
Mr.
We've
Liu.
seen lethal anti-Semitic
Mr. Liu votes
violence,
no.
including
Ms.
the murder
Jayapal.
of 2 young Israeli
Ms.
embassy
Jayapal votes
staffers
no.
just
Mr.
blocks from
Correa.
the Capitol, and then in the attack on a gathering of
Scanlon.
Jewish people in
Ms.
support of
Scanlon votes
hostages
no.
held in
Mr.
Gaza
Neguse.
in Boulder in June. We've seen continued mass
Ms.
shootings
McGrath.
at schools, like the domestic terror incident at a
Ross.
Catholic school in
Ms. Ross
Minneapolis
votes
last
no.
month,
Ms.
which
Ballant.
killed 2 children
Ballant
and wounded
votes no.
18
Mr.
others.
Garcia.
And in August, a man fired
Mr.
more than
Garcia
500
votes no.
bullets
Ms. Kamlager
at the
Dove.
Centers for Disease Control and
Ms.
Prevention,
Kamlager Dove votes
killing a
no.
police
Mr.
officer
Moskowitz.
who was a Marine veteran and a
Moskowitz
father.
votes no. Mr.
People
Goldman.
like Melissa
Mr. Goldman
Hortman
votes
and
no.
Charlie
Ms.
Kirk
Crockett.
No.
should be able to
Ms. Crockett votes
participate in
no.
politics as elected officials or active citizens
Gentleman from
without
Wisconsin.
being shot down in cold blood in the United States of
Tiffany votes
America.
aye.
People should also be able to go to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, to work, to the mall, and to church without being shot down in explosions of gun violence. The important position at the FBI requires a leader who puts public safety and
Mr.
national
Chairman, there are 21
security
ayes and
and the
16
rule of law
noes.
first.
Motion to table
I'm afraid,
is,
Director Patel, you've given us reason to believe you've used the powers of the FBI
concludes
to serve
today's-
Donald
Nope,
Trump
I've got one.
and his agenda
gentlelady
of
from-
partisan
gentlelady from
retribution.
Texas is recognized.
You've broken
Thank
your
you,
promise
Mr.
not
Chair.
to do that. You've betrayed
I'll
Jeffrey
tell y'all when
Epstein's
I'm done
victims
reading.
and survivors.
Mr.
You've
Chair,
turned your
pursuant
back
to
on the
Clause
career law
2K6
enforcement
of
officers
Rule
of the
11,
FBI.
I move
and as
that
a
the
result,
committee
you've
subpoena
left
the
us,
head
you've
of the
left
Bureau
all
of
of us
Prisons,
less,
William K.
less
Marshall, to
safe
discuss and
than
produce
before.
all
Mr.
records
Chairman, I
relating
yield
to
back.
the transfer
Gentleman yields
of
back. That
Jeffrey
opening statement may
Epstein,
have been longer than any
co-conspirator
book
and
directors
child
ever
sex
written or anyone else has
trafficker,
written. Without
Ghislaine
objection, all of the
Maxwell,
opening
in
statements will be
apparent
included in the record. We will
violation
now
of
introduce today's
BOP
witness.
policies
Mr. Patel has been
regarding
the
sex
director of the FBI
offenders
since
to
February of
include all
2025.
BOP
He previously
communications
served
with
as Chief of
DOJ,
Staff at the
FBI,
Department
and
of
the White
Defense,
House.
Deputy
BOP
Director of
transferred
National
Maxwell
Intelligence
to a
with the
minimum
National
security
Security
camp
Council,
following her
and also
interview
as a
with
congressional
President
staffer
Trump's
for the
former
President.
personal
Motion on the
attorney
table.
and now
Cases
Deputy
today. Motion
Attorney
also worked
General
with the public
Ty
defender in the
Blanche.
state of Florida.
I am
Table
done reading
is
now.
not debatable. And thank
This
him for
question
appearing
occurs
here
on the
today.
motion to table.
We
Those in
begin by
favor will
swearing
say
you
aye.
in, Director. Would
Aye.
you please
Those
stand?
opposed, no.
Raise your
No.
right hand.
And in the chair, the ayes have it.
I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury
Mr.
that the
Jordan.
testimony you're about to give is
Mr.
true
Jordan votes yes.
and correct
Mr.
to the best
Issa.
of your knowledge,
Mr.
information,
Issa
and
votes
belief,
yes.
so help you
Mr.
God?
Biggs. Mr. Biggs
Let the
votes
record
aye.
reflect
Mr.
that the witness
McClintock.
has answered in the
Mr.
affirmative. You
McClintock
can be
votes
seated
aye.
as
Mr.
you are.
Tiffany. Mr.
You know,
Tiffany
you've
votes
been through
aye.
this.
Mr. Massey.
You've been through this yesterday.
Mr. Massey votes no.
Fine job.
Mr.
Please know
Roy.
that your written testimony will be entered into
Mr.
the
Roy
record
votes
in its
aye.
entirety.
Mr.
Accordingly, we ask that
Fitzgerald.
you summarize your testimony.
Mr. Fitzgerald
Director,
votes aye.
you may
Mr.
begin.
Klein. Mr. Klein votes aye.
Good
Mr.
morning,
Gooden.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Ranking
Gooden
Member
votes
Raskin,
aye.
and
Mr.
members of the
Vandrew.
committee. beginning. I want to
Mr.
begin
Guidry
today
votes
by
yes. Mr.
discussing
Nels.
the appalling
Mr. Nels votes
assassination
yes.
of Charlie
Mr.
Kirk.
Moore.
It's
Mr. Moore
important for
votes
this
yes.
FBI to
Mr.
be
Kiley.
transparent without
Ms.
jeopardizing our
Hageman.
investigation. So a little
Ms.
bit of
Hageman
timeline
votes
is
yes.
important.
Ms. Lee.
Charlie Kirk
Ms.
was
Lee
unfortunately
votes aye.
assassinated
Mr.
on
Hunt.
September 10th. We immediately,
Mr.
the next
Fry.
day, released images early
Mr.
in
Fry
the
votes
day
aye. Mr.
in local
Grothman.
time in Utah to start the
Mr.
public
Grothman votes aye.
partnership
Mr.
in our
Knott.
manhunt for the assassin and culprits. At
Mr. Harris.
approximately 5 p.m.
Mr.
local
Knott.
time, I arrived on the
Mr. Knott
ground and
votes
walked
aye.
the
Mr.
crime
Harris.
scene myself. And we flew
Mr.
multiple
Onder.
FBI assets
Mr.
in
Onder
and out
votes aye.
to
Mr.
process
Schmidt.
DNA
Mr.
simultaneously
Schmidt
while
votes aye.
bringing in
Mr.
evidence
Gill.
response
Mr. Gill
technicians,
votes aye.
hostage
Mr.
rescue
Baumgartner.
teams, and other experts to
Mr.
assist state and
Baumgartner
local
votes
law
aye.
enforcement with their
Mr. Raskin.
investigation. At
Mr.
8 p.m.
Raskin votes
local on
no.
September
Mr.
11th,
Nadler.
the FBI collected and
Mr. Nadler
populated
votes
and
no. Ms.
promulgated
Lofgren.
at a press
Hoffman
conference
votes
a
no.
video
Mr. Cohen?
of the suspect on the ground.
Johnson?
We also released
Mr.
enhanced
Johnson
images.
votes no. Mr. Swallow?
Due to that
Mr.
release
Swallow
that I
votes
directed
no.
an
Mr.
order,
Liu?
the suspect involved
Mr. Liu
was
votes no. Ms.
apprehended
Jayapal?
and in custody at 10
Ms.
p.m. local
Jayapal
time.
votes
That's
no.
less than 2
Mr.
hours
Correa?
after we did the video release and the photo
Ms.
release.
Scanlon?
So within 33
Ms. Scanlon
hours,
votes
that
no.
individual
Mr.
suspect was
Neguse?
in custody. And his
Ms.
family, who has
McBath?
since been interrogated, specifically
Ms. Ross?
stated to
Ms. Ross
FBI
votes no.
interrogators
Ms.
that
Ballant?
because of the video
Ms.
that
Ballant
the FBI
votes no.
released
Mr.
at my
Garcia?
direction, and because
Mr.
of the
Garcia
photographs
votes
that they
no. Ms.
released,
Kamlager
they
Dove?
identified their son. They
Ms. Kamlager
confronted their
Dove
son
votes
when he
no.
swung by
Mr.
their home,
Moskowitz?
and that's what led to his
Mr.
apprehension.
Moskowitz votes no.
We
Mr.
are still,
Goldman?
the FBI
Mr.
has
Goldman
that
votes no. Ms.
investigation
Crockett?
ongoing, and it continues to be
Crockett votes
ongoing.
no.
And I want to thank the state of Utah and the state and local authorities there. And I also want to thank the Attorney General and President Trump for directing resources to allow us to conduct that investigation as we have. Under this administration, the FBI has arrested more than 23,000 violent criminals. 23,000 in 7 months. That's twice as many year to date last year. We've taken over 6,000 firearms off the streets. 6,000 guns are no longer in the
Mr.
hands
Chairman,
of
there are
criminals
21
in
ayes and
7
6
months.
noes.
We've identified and found and located 4,700 child victims.
Mr. Chairman?
That is a
Point of inquiry.
35%
Like to say his
increase
point?
year to date
Am I correct that
last
the
year. We have arrested
House
1,500
Oversight Committee,
child
led by
predators.
Chairman Comer,
That is a
is issuing
10%
significant number of
increase year to
subpoenas
date last year
along
in
the
just
lines
7 months.
of some of the things we've
We've
talked about
assisted
today,
our
but in
partners
general
with
terms,
countless
pursuing
counterterrorism
a
operations
lot of the
around
questions that are
world.
being
We've
raised here today
captured
and
at
others.
the FBI
That is
4 of the
accurate,
most
and
top 10
typically the
wanted
SARs,
fugitives
they're actually
in the
getting the
world
SARs from the
in
Treasury
7
Department,
months.
which is
To
something
put
that
that
we
in
think is important.
perspective, that's as
Yeah,
many as my
that material is
predecessor
going
nabbed
to
in
the
the
oversight.
entirety of the
Mr. Chairman,
Biden
ask a follow-up
administration.
question?
We got 4, we got more coming.
here.
On top of
Gentleman
that,
from New York is
in
right
2 weeks, thanks to the
Is
help
it
of the
your
CIA,
understanding
we
that the
collected and
Oversight
captured
Committee has
one of the individuals
requested
responsible for the
documents
horrific
listed in Mr.
Abbey Gate
Swalwell's
bombing that led
subpoena,
to the
the
murder
recordings, the
of
witness
13 service
statements,
members? We did that
the
in 2
photographs,
weeks.
the
They didn't do it in the
materials
4
seized
years of
by
the
search
entire
warrant.
prior administration.
I have to look,
Nationwide, we've been
at those carefully,
executing
but
our
I know that
Operation
it's
Summer
a
Heat, the
broad
FBI's
subpoena,
national
and
It's a
includes
very
all
broad
kinds of
subpoena.
files.
Oddly enough, it excludes all those essential
Ask the
documents that
citizens
are
of
in the
Seattle,
possession of
Miami,
the FBI.
Memphis, Charlotte, Chicago, New Orleans.
I think that'll be included in the case files
To
that have been
specifically highlight New Orleans and
subpoenaed. The chair
Nashville,
recognizes the
there
gentleman
has
from
been
Arizona.
a 250%
several
increase
uses.
in
Gentleman
violent
can state
crime
his,
arrests in
unanimous
those
consent.
cities
Yeah, first
alone,
one is
and other mid-major cities
Democrat running
that
for
I've just
Attorney
listed.
General.
In just a
issues
few short months,
profanity-laced Charlie
we
Kirk
have
post.
already unleashed 1,000
This one,
FBI
Cleveland Fire
personnel
Chief removed from
across
duty
this
over
country.
incendiary
Every
Charlie
single state
Kirk
across
social
this
media
country
post.
is getting a plus up. This is a
Next one,
fiction
generic
that the
condemnations
FBI
of
is
political
short,
violence
or
won't
that
stop
we are
the left from
compromising the
escalating.
men and women in the field.
Objection.
They do not need to be in
Next one
Washington,
is,
D.C., so we're sending them into the field
A few
to
weeks
each
before
and every
Charlie
one of
Kirk
your
was
states.
assassinated, CNN
Because of
announced a
that,
widely
crime
viewed
is at
interview
an
with
all-time
Destiny,
low.
describing Charlie Kirk as
We had to do
spawn
it because of the
Satan.
explosion of crime.
Without objection.
And maybe the most important stat for Americans to realize
And
in just
let's
7
see.
months, we are on track
The next
to
one
produce
is
the lowest murder rate in modern U.S. history
I'm
by
trouble
double
finding this.
digits. Those are results not of mine. Those are results of the men and women of the FBI. If you want to criticize me, bring
I
it
will-
on.
I will
But
submit
do
it
not
for the
attack
record
the
later,
brave leaders in
the
the
rest of
field.
these. I have another
We are
30,
also
so
working
I'll just-
24/7,
Speaker,
365 on the opioid epidemic that is
Gentleman from
killing
New York is recognized
more
for
than
one
hundreds of
Point of
thousands of people a
information with
year.
respect to everything that
We have
Mr.
seen
Biggs just read.
1,600 kilograms of
So
fentanyl
what?
off the
It's all free
streets so
speech.
far in 7 months. Year-to-date,
Amendment
25%
is-
increase. To put that in perspective, that's enough
alive
to
and well
kill
in
a
this great
third
country, and
of
thank
the
you, gentlemen,
American
for that.
population,
The
120
gentleman from
million
Florida.
Americans.
Purpose as a gentleman's secret
100,000
recognition.
kilograms of cocaine and meth
The
gone
question that
off the
Mr. Roy
streets.
was raising
Earlier
about
this
how that
year,
is being
I
done in the
highlighted in
Oversight
Cincinnati,
Committee's
Ohio, how
first,
we're
Mr.
getting
Roy asked
creative
him
to
because he
chase
believes that
down
should be
those that
done
were
in the
willing to do
Judiciary
harm
Committee
to our
instead, or he was
citizens,
just confirming
not just by
that it's
striking
being
at the
done in
heart
general?
of
I don't
the
know the motives
fentanyl
behind Mr.
producer,
Roy's statement.
but the
I just know what
fentanyl
Mr. Roy
precursor
said.
companies in China. And we
I
indicted
think
for
Mr.
the
Roy's
first
here.
time multiple
Yeah.
companies.
That
and
concludes
individuals, not just in America, but
Well, you
in
can talk
mainland
to him. You can go
China,
talk to him.
that
You can walk right
producing
across the thing.
ingredients
That
I get
concludes
one
today's
final-
hearing.
fentanyl
Final
that
UC?
kill our children. And we're
Man,
gonna
this is
keep
a record
going.
day for UCs. Go ahead. The
Counterterrorism
gentleman
work,
from Maryland's
cyber
right
attacks,
now.
Timeline.
foreign
UC.
adversaries
Thank
are
you. This
something
is
the
it.
FBI must
Timeline
never sleep
suggests
on,
Trump
and we are
team
not
changed
sleeping.
its tune on
In the
Epstein
counterintelligence
files
space alone,
after
this
Trump
year,
was told
year to
he
date,
was in
30%
them.
increase
CNN
in
politics.
counterintelligence
Without
arrests
objection,
from the
without objection,
DPRK,
all members will have
Russia,
5 legislative
Iran,
days
and
to submit
China.
additional written
And I want the
questions
American
for the
people to
witness
know,
or
in
additional
this setting,
materials
there's a lot
for
of
the
work
record.
that
Without
the brave
objection,
men
the
and women
hearing
in the FBI are
is
doing, we just
adjourned.
can't get into, but they don't stop. Our cyber threats, ransomware attacks, those harming our children online. We have nearly a 20% increase in indictments arrests in 7 months alone this year. We're going after those that harm our malware, infrastructure systems, telecom systems, and energy structure. Combating salt and vault typhoons are just a little bit of the examples we're doing. Maybe most importantly, under the counterterrorism and domestic terrorism umbrella, are nihilist, violent extremists, and those that label themselves 764, who wish to go online and convince children to maim and mutilate themselves and commit suicide. And we are producing record numbers of arrests under that umbrella organization. We even stopped an individual in the 764 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl. He is now in custody. Transparency remains one of my main priorities at the FBI. And this is what I've done in my 7 months at the helm. We've produced more than 33,000 pages of documents to Congress to a variety of committees, including, I believe, 7,500 to this committee alone, if memory serves me correct. To put the 33,000 in perspective, my predecessor in 7 years produced 13,000 pages in total to the United States Congress. His predecessor in 4 years produced 3,000 pages in total. I repeat, I have produced 33,000 pages in 7 years to this Congress and will continue to do so. I'm dedicated to restoring the trust and the mission and the integrity of the FBI, and we cannot do so without congressional oversight, and I promise you I will continue to do so. On the Epstein case, the original sin on the Epstein case was how it was handled by Mr. Acosta when he first brought the case in 2006, 7, and 8. The original case had a very limited search warrant, had a very limited search window, had a very limited investigative window. I was not there when those search warrants and that investigation was launched. I would not have done it that way. They were limited to only 3 to 4 years of investigations from 97 to approximately 2001 and 2002 to 2005. Mr. Acosta allowed Mr. Epstein to enter into a plea agreement where he served weekend jails for trafficking minor women. He also was allowed to leave jail to go home on the weekends. Plus, he allowed a non-prosecution agreement to be signed as part of that plea deal, prohibiting future investigations from that prosecution and from that evidence, and prohibiting the collection of further material. That is the original sin. We are working with Congress to produce more than any administration ever has material on Epstein. And I welcome the challenge to tell us that we are not being as transparent as the law allows. We even went to court and asked the judges to lift those prosecutorial agreements and to lift those court order seals, and they denied us 3 times. Congress is welcome to do the same and join the fight. And I'd lastly like to focus on operation that the president led in D.C. Because of this, we are taking this fight in D.C. to every single city across the country. 2,100 arrests in the last month alone. D.C. has seen a 60% decrease in gun crimes, 75% decrease in carjackings, and 53% decrease in homicides in our nation's capital. And rightly so. We're bringing that fight to the streets of America. I want to thank you for your support, and I'm proud to be the director that leads this FBI into a new headquarters building that they've needed for decades, saving the taxpayer $3.5 billion and also providing our workforce a safe environment. If you don't know the calamity that is the Hoover Building, I invite each and every one of you to walk around. I'll give you a tour myself, and you can see where the cement falls on the heads of our employees that is only to be saved by netting. Just to give you an example. Thank you for support to our mission. And I do want to highlight one thing about D.C. It's because the FBI gathered sources and evidence that we were able to, through our source network, identify the horrific murder of the D.C. intern, Eric Tarpinian. Mm-hmm. And I've spoken to his family, and we are working to bring them justice. And Mr. Chairman, in my 16 years, now my 17 years of government service, if anyone has any questions about my service, bring it on.
Yeah. Thank you, Director. We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Issa.
Director, delighted to have you here. You are a breath of fresh air. As you outlined, and I won't repeat it, the accomplishments, you did so with the same resources as your predecessor, roughly. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so how much of that has to do with taking people out of the backside of the FBI and moving them into the field, into doing the job for which we primarily pay the FBI?
It's exactly what we needed done. 1/3 of the FBI's workforce resided in the National Capital Region before I got there. 1/3 of the crimes do not happen in Washington, D.C.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So 1,000 personnel of the FBI were deployed across this country on a permanent basis, and every single state in this union is getting a plus up, not a reduction, a plus up of 1811s of intel analysts and support staff. And that is why the crime rates are going down in record numbers.
Thank you for doing that, and it's perhaps the hardest thing for a bureaucrat to do is to lower the head count around them that support them, and I appreciate your willingness to do it different than your predecessor. A lot of what you covered earlier was the find, the discovery, and then the prosecution that is done by the DOJ. But I want to talk a little bit about the prevent side.
On the Charlie assassination, sir?
No, on all of these.
Okay.
Okay, for example, and I'll bring it up before the Democrats bring it up, January 6th. January 6th, we now know, because of your find, that in fact there were people involved who were not just observers but participants who in fact, it's been alleged, and I personally believe, in fact, were part of promoting, perhaps even the one woman who died, encouraging her to walk through a door that led to her death. When you see that kind of activity, and you know it was done under predecessors with full knowledge, whether it's January 6th, where embedded people crossed the line, or any other activity, including obviously the Russian hoax that we're now dealing with up in, front and center. My question to you is, what can you or others do to prevent it from occurring again? Not on your watch, but on future watches. How can we know that this won't happen again the moment you leave the FBI?
It's simple. What I'm doing through our leadership cadre is having FBI agents do what they were trained to do, not what they were not trained to do, not put them in situations that both harm them and the public. We're also utilizing our SORT networks and prioritizing the threat structure to go after the narco traffickers, the counterterrorism people, the counterintelligence threats, and the cyber threats. That's what they were trained to do, and that's what we're letting them do.
One major question I have, after decades of doing this, on our side of it, both the chairman, myself, and others, both at oversight and here, have seen that the FBI and the Department of Justice hide behind non-statutory practices. Now, you've changed the interpretation of many of those practices. That's why we're getting the discovery that was previously withheld. How do we work together to make sure that we never again have false walls, non-statutory walls that say the Department of Justice has a prohibition about giving, quote, you fill in the blank, that has led to the chairman not seeing anything until you took over?
I'm wedded to aggressive constitutional oversight. Having been a House congressional staffer, I know that is an important part of securing our democracy. And the way we make it an everlasting, enduring process is by showing the American people the results of what we are doing and the important work of this committee and putting it out to them so they can see government waste, fraud, and abuse. And then they can demand from our constituents and our electors that they want this process to continue.
Last major question here. Some things are so sensitive that we both would agree they cannot be made public. Will you commit to this committee, when it is too sensitive to disclose, that you would at least make it available for in-camera review by the chairman and ranking members or others designated?
I have done that, and I will continue to do that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a breath of fresh air. This is the beginning of what we need. But my questions today for the director are ones in which I believe that we do need to codify by agreement or by statute, if necessary, the kind of openness and transparency that we're seeing from this administration, the kind of discovery that's allowing us to do our oversight properly. And I would hope that that be the follow-up to this, obviously along with the Attorney General. And I yield back my 4 seconds.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Director Patel. In the wake of the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump said, quote, "Violence and murder are the tragic consequences of demonizing those with whom you disagree, day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible," close quote. I would note for the record that Donald Trump has famously demonized practically every person he has ever disagreed with, and therefore, using his own logic, he has put their lives at risk. I should know, about 2 weeks ago, when I announced my decision not to decision not to seek re-election, many people on both sides of the aisle, including the chairman, offered me well wishes and thanked me for my service. Donald Trump, on the other hand, took to Truth Social to call me a, quote, psychopathic nut job, among other things. Yesterday, I received a threatening note filled with anti-Semitic comments and hateful attacks that mimic some of the same language used by the president. I am sure many of us on this committee face similar threats every day. We have seen political assaults on both the left and the right. The attack on Charlie Kirk, the attempted assassination of the president, the murder of the Democratic Speaker of the Minnesota House, the assault on Paul Pelosi, and the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, for example. Director Patel, do you agree that there is political violence from both the left and the right?
There's too much political violence.
Do you agree, yes or no, that there's violence?
There is too much political violence based on ideologies from either side.
From either side, okay. Are you aware of the study by the Cato Institute, a well-known conservative group, that found that 69% of the violence is from the right?
I'm not familiar with that study.
You're not familiar, okay. I would commend it to you. Are you aware the administration has threatened to use violence as an excuse to crack down on liberty and freedom of speech?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Are you aware the administration has threatened to use violence as an excuse to crack down on liberty and freedom of speech?
Nobody at the FBI is doing that.
I didn't ask you about the FBI, I said the administration.
I speak for the FBI.
I would like to enter the record an article from today's New York Times titled, "Trump Invokes Kirk's Killing in Justifying Measures to Silence Opponents." In the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing, President Trump and his allies have laid out a broad plan to target liberal groups, monitor speech, revoke visas, and designate certain groups as domestic terrorists. I ask unanimous consent to insert this into the record. Thank you. Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted. Moving on, I want to address another topic. The FBI has traditionally played a key role in prosecuting public officials for corruption. But I fear that at a time when the president is accepting planes from Qatar for his post-presidential personal use, issuing pardons to major donors, and personally profiting from the office of the presidency, the FBI may be abandoning its commitment to investigating public corruption. Since its creation in the wake of the Watergate scandal, the Public Integrity Section has been one of the crown jewels of the Department of Justice, investigating and prosecuting corruption among the nation's public officials and acting as a key safeguard against politicized prosecutions. This section's work has been supported by an elite squad in the FBI devoted specifically to rooting out corruption. But according to reports, the Public Integrity Section has now been decimated, and the FBI's Public Corruption Squad has been disbanded. I would like to submit for the record a New York Times article entitled, "FBI Dismantles Elite Public Corruption Squad." I ask unanimous consent. Thank you. These actions are an invitation to corrupt politicians to break the law, since they know that the government is asleep at the switch. Last month, Senator Warren and I, along with dozens of other members of Congress, wrote to you and Attorney General Bondi expressing grave concern over your decision to effectively legalize corruption and to politicize prosecutorial decisions. And he asks unanimous consent to enter this letter into the record. Thank you. I don't have time today to walk through all your questions, all of our questions and concerns, but will you commit to answering this letter in short order so that we can understand what factors led to this decision and how it has impacted the ability to hold corrupt officials accountable?
I will review your letter with my team and respond as soon as I can.
You will respond. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director, for being here. I appreciate the change in the FBI and the tone since you've been there. We heard the ranking member, however, describe the FBI under your leadership as being resorting to political enforcement and you personally as being paranoid. I would just suggest that perhaps that is the projections of the ranking member himself and not you, sir. I want to refer to something that was said yesterday in yesterday's hearing by Senator Grassley. He said, "It's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics." At your nomination hearing, he gave you records, made public records about whistleblowers regarding something called Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by anti-Trump FBI agent Thibault, and Arctic Frost became Jack Smith's elector case. The new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. In fact, it was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the groups that the Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorneys General's Association, and Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups, Republican-linked individuals, were placed under the investigative scope of Arctic frost. On that political list for investigation was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. I'd ask that, Mr. Chairman, that document be admitted.
Without objection.
So, I know that this may be under current investigation, but I wish to ask specific questions about this for just a moment. What search tools were used in Arctic frost to view private communications of targets?
I believe the traditional search tools, search warrants, lawful service of process, and the tools that the FBI has in our infrastructure systems, cybersecurity systems, and counterintelligence systems. But generally speaking, if I may, I want to use this to highlight the fact that I'm continuing my promise to work with Congress to produce documents simultaneously and also conduct ongoing investigations. I'm giving you as much as I can, and I'll give you more when I can.
Thank you. Another question regarding that is, were there any directives from the Biden White House concerning the Arctic frost investigation?
Were there any,
directives or communications from the Biden White House itself concerning the Arctic frost investigation?
I'll just rely on what was turned over to date, sir.
Okay. So I want to add here, the search warrants that were used included the seizing of a U.S. member of Congress, his phone. I think we all know who that was and how that was taken away and used for political purposes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director. So we'll leave that for a second, and let's go over to the Charlie Kirk case for just a second. Let's emphasize this. How many hours did it take from the assassination to the arrest of the assassin, Mr. Director?
33.
That seems pretty swift, and it was because of the actual release of videos and photographs that you directed to be released, sir.
That's correct, and to put it in perspective, the Boston bomber took 5 days and Luigi Mangione took 5 days.
Was the platform Discord forthright from the start with law enforcement about the shooter's communications on its platform?
Discord, the platform ownership, has been working with our lawful process, and we are obtaining materials from them on a rolling basis.
Thank you. And I want to get back here to Arctic frost for just a second, Mr. Chairman. I'd like the unclassified document from the FBI released to be admitted to the record.
Without objection.
And a document from the Economic Times also to be admitted to the record.
Without objection.
So I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds. We could go on about the Epstein case. I've got a bunch about that, but I'm just going to let you, if you wish to respond to either of the two vitriolic questioning or statement from the Democrats.
The work of the FBI speaks for itself. It's on showcase here today. Anyone that wants to attack the FBI can attack me, but leave our leadership structure alone. When you have 23,000 violent felons arrested, twice as many as this time last year, the work speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Appreciate your good work, Director Patel. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
Has Epstein's list, they're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
So you finished that December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public. You can see this clip.
Boy pants, and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
black book?
Black book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
All right, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the Black Book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the Black Book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there,
That's
the Black
exactly
Book
what I
under
was
the direct
talking.
control of the FBI director.
We have released more material than anyone else before. The Biden administration, Obama administration had the exact opportunities to release this material, and they never did. And if you are telling the men and women of the FBI,
Why
we're
have
not
you
going after
changed your
child predators.
position?
Hang on, you said we're not going after child predators. 1,500 child predators arrested this year, 35%
Okay,
increase,
I'll reclaim my time.
4,700 child victims
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
found.
reclaim my time if you could instruct the witness. Why have you changed your position? There you were saying it's under the direct control of the FBI director and all of it should be released. Why have you changed your
Everything
position?
that has been lawfully permitted to be released has been released. And as I told you,
Really?
the investigation was limited. And let me make something crystal clear. I never said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic other people, other women, and they're not other victims. This is the investigation we were given from 2006, 7, and 8, and the search warrants from 2006, 7, and 8. That's what we're working with.
Well, wait, have you released all of the stuff that the FBI has seized from Epstein's house? The computers, the emails, the file cabinets, the documents? What about the financial records? Have you released all of that?
Everything the court has allowed us to
Which
release.
court are you talking about?
3 separate federal courts have come in and said.
We're
there are
talking about the
3
evidence you've got. It's got nothing to do with what those courts have.
Do you have any
We're talking
idea
about
how the
evidence-
law works? Do you want me to break the law in a federal judge's order?
No,
to
I want you to
satisfy
follow your own
curiosity?
word, Director Patel. You said up there it was under the direct control of the FBI director. He had the Black Book.
Everything I have direct control over, we have gone to court. You haven't.
Complete
We
your
went
sentence.
to court.
Everything you have direct
We-
control over, you
we
said.
have gone to court, and everything we have direct
Director
control
Patel,
over.
complete your
and
sentence.
can
You said
lawfully
everything-
release.
The
We are
gentleman-
releasing.
He'd like to complete his answer.
You began the sentence, everything you have direct control over, and then you stopped that sentence. You've released everything that you have direct control over?
I have direct control over and can lawfully release. If you're not familiar with the court orders, that's not my fault.
Oh, I'm
Go
perfectly,
look at them.
I'm
Go
perfectly
to
familiar
court.
with them. But how did we prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell?
She was prosecuted with the investigatory material that was collected from 2001 and 2005. Because of the non-prosecution agreements and the court orders on the investigations and search warrants, we were not able to develop new information. And oh, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein was out for 12 years, and the Obama and Biden administration did nothing to look at his work, his pedophile network. If you want to blame me, that's fine. But now you're blaming the men and women who conducted
No,
this
stop
great
that.
search.
I'm not blaming anybody other than you. You're not keeping your word. You said that you would release all of the materials
Has
under your
anyone
direct
released
control.
more information on Epstein than I have? Has
Well,
anyone?
Much
did
more.
Comey, did Ray?
Much
Did
more.
they?
Excuse me. Much more has come out in the days since the American people in Congress have been demanding it. But it's coming out in dribs and drabs. Why don't you just release the entire file as you promised to do?
I literally just told you, there are multiple federal court orders. I'm not going to break the law to satisfy your curiosity. You didn't join us when we filed court to release the court orders. You could have. You have lawyers. You could have shown up. You didn't do that.
That's a tiny fraction of the material we're
That
talking
is
about.
not.
It is
How
a
do you-
tiny fraction.
How do you know that? Have you seen
No.
everything?
It's all misdirection.
How do you know
Time
that?
of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Director. Just to be clear, how many of the Epstein files were released in the 4 years of the Biden administration?
0.
And how many have you released?
I don't have the number, but it's got to be thousands of pages of stuff.
I was going to ask you to begin whether Americans are safer today than they were 9 months ago, but you cited dramatic increases in criminal arrests since you've taken office, a dramatic decrease in crime that's resulted. Who would have thought that taking criminals off the streets would reduce the crime rate? But somehow we have stumbled upon that new truth. But it begs the question, what was the FBI doing during the 4 years of the Biden administration to see that dramatic an increase in work under your tenure?
The simple answer is I'm letting good cops be cops. We're working with our state and local law enforcement. We're energizing our partnerships. We're bringing on more task force officers. When you have more cops in the streets, when you're using ground-based intelligence, when you're not weaponizing law enforcement and focusing on DC and focusing on the rest of America, this is what happens. It is not a significant mind shift in terms of how we maneuver the FBI. They've wanted to do this work since they signed up. We're just letting them.
And we've seen many prominent Democrats oppose your efforts to restore law and order to the streets of our nation's capital. I mean, all of us here have seen a dramatic change for the better here in Washington, D.C. Why are so many Democrats attacking you for that?
Sir, Democrats have been attacking me for a decade, as is the fake news media. They didn't like the fact that I exposed the Russiagate host and the largest weaponization of the FBI, DOJ, and U.S. history. We proved it to be true with congressional oversight. I'm wed to that congressional oversight and will continue to do that work.
Christopher Wray repeatedly warned this committee that the Biden open borders policy had produced a significant increase in terrorist threats that he said kept him up at night. A particular concern, he said, was the 2 million gotaways that entered the country during the Biden administration. That's an average of 41,000 every month. What are the monthly gotaway numbers today?
Sir, I'll have to get back to you on the exact gotaway numbers, but identifying that there are gotaways is step one. Going and manhunting them is step two, and that's what we're committing our resources to do.
Well, that's my next question, is what progress has the administration made in apprehending and removing terrorist threats that came in during the Biden years?
I think you're talking about, if you're not, let me know, known or suspected terrorists, and we've encountered almost zero at the southern border since the southern border has been sealed. But the problem that we are running into is our northern border. It's largely expansive. The enemy has adapted, and we need more focus on the northern border to stop known or suspected terrorists from coming in from places like China, Russia, the Middle East, Africa, Afghanistan.
And what can you tell us about the remaining threat posed by potential terrorist cells here in the United States?
The terrorist threat that continues to be posed by international terrorists here in the United States is one of my highest priorities. We are working through our intelligence community partners to identify those individuals, and we've taken down numerous individuals in numerous rings across this country to neutralize that terrorist threat, including in places like New York City, Los Angeles, and I believe Dallas, Texas most recently.
How extensively did criminal cartels like Sinaloa, Jalisco, New Generation, MS-13, Trinidad, and others infiltrate our country during the Biden administration?
By the tens of thousands.
Well, and what progress have you been making in combating their presence?
I think the DHS is best to speak to that, but I think I can't remember the numbers of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individuals they found that came in illegally, and the tens of thousands that associations to criminal networks have all been deported.
And that effort is being opposed every step of the way by Democratic leaders in our cities, some of our states, and right here in the Congress. Isn't that true?
Well, we're just working where we can in every single city we can, and I welcome the opportunity to partner with Republicans or Democrats on fighting violent crime like we're doing.
Mr. Biggs asked about Arctic frost. What else can you tell us about that and what we need to do to assure that it never happens again?
Continue the congressional oversight work that you're doing on Arctic frost. Let me provide you with more documentation on Arctic frost, and also call in witnesses from the paperwork that we have given you. You have that right, and the American public deserves to hear what those people have to say. As for my ongoing investigation, there's not much I can say.
What role did the FBI play in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story during the 2024 election?
Off the top of my memory, sir, I believe the FBI was in possession of verified information from that laptop, and it was improperly publicized that they did not have information and masked it as Russian disinformation. We now know that was categorically false. I don't know why the FBI did that, when they did that, but we've released all the materials related to that.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized. Mr. Goldman.
Mr. Patel, does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It's not a complicated question. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I didn't say it was a complicated question. I just didn't hear you, so my apologies. We have released where President Trump's name's in the Epstein files and everybody else, and all credible information that we are legally allowed to release has been released.
All right, so let's go through that. You're referring to court orders that prohibit you from releasing grand jury testimony under Rule 6E. Is that what you're referring to when you say as the law allows?
That's a piece of it.
Really? What other evidence do those 3 court orders you cited prohibit from being released?
Information that was collected pursuant to those search warrants that were limited in fashion.
Wrong. That's not what the court order says, and that's not under 6E.
And you're talking, and I said that's 6E, and I said there was others, and I'm answering that. There are sealed court order documents. There are protective orders.
They are unsealed as part of discovery given to Ghislaine Maxwell. They are no longer sealed.
That's just not true. We can argue about it all you want.
Okay, well, you agree that there are, so your testimony here is that the reason why you are not releasing all of the videos that you have acknowledged, there are so many, and that the FBI spent thousands of hours of reviewing, the photographs, and the photographs that you have. You're saying that you're not releasing those because there's a court order requiring them to be sealed? Is that your testimony?
Never said that about the videos. On the totality of the videos, of the thousands of images that were seized pursuant to the search warrants executed at the time, the overwhelming majority of that video is pornographic material that was downloaded from the internet and child sexual abuse material. We will never release that.
Well, as you should not release the victims. But if there are videos that relate to others who Epstein trafficked to, such as maybe Prince Andrew, or photographs, that you have total control to release.
Yes, and if it exists...
And so why haven't you released it?
Why are you supposing that that is a fact when in fact it is false? Are you saying that...
You're saying that none of the videos relate to anything relevant to the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring?
Every single video that we have collected pursuant to the prior search warrants has been examined for the last 10 years. And every single video has been utilized for whatever prosecutions were able to be legally brought.
I'm not asking about prosecutions. I'm asking about why you aren't releasing the full Epstein files, including the names of people who were involved in the sex ring that you promised to do before you became FBI director.
I just told you, I'm not going to release downloaded porn of
I'm
children
not asking
on the
about
internet.
that. Fine. I'm asking about all the other files.
What other videos? Tell me. Tell me.
That's what I'm asking.
Tell me.
You're saying there are no videos that would be relevant to anyone else involved in the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring.
Pursuant to Mr. Acosta's collection of information based on the search warrants. That's all we have in our possession.
And I'm asking you, that stuff.
That's all we got.
I'm not asking all you got. I'm asking you, in that stuff, there's nothing that's related to any other sex traffic, any other people engaged with Epstein in underage sex.
That's correct. To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Let's talk about the witness interviews. 302s of witness interviews. Those are not subject to the court order. Those are not subject to any fictional sealed order for a search warrant. Why aren't you releasing those with the redacted names of the victims?
We are releasing as much as legally allowed. That's why we went back to the courts.
How is that not legally allowed?
Sir, do you know how court orders work? Do you know how protective orders
Actually,
work? Do you know how
Mr.
sealing
Patel,
orders
I was
work?
a real prosecutor for 10 years. I know exactly how.
So I was a
court
fake one?
orders. And I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took.
You should know that as a real prosecutor when the court hand down